Welcome back to the Far Side of the Moon podcast, and today we will be going over Raised by Wolves episode 3, which is an HBO Max original, and you could even get a week trial to check it out. Not sponsored, guys, but will like to be.
All right, Albert, you want to go ahead and recap us?
Yes, sir. And let's see. Now, Raised by Wolves, episode 3. It starts up with Father. Father's walking down the little pass that they have with all the corn, where all the corpus, sorry, where the creatures were actually torn to shreds by Mother's shrieks.
Yeah, we see like a big stain of blood.
Definitely. Now, he does see that stain of blood. He gets down and he picks something up. They don't really show you what it is at this moment, but they do bring that up a little later. He gets down, cutscene, and now it shows Tempest and the other children. Tempest is explaining to them what happened, what was going on. There was a creature following her, and she tries to comfort them, but no, they kind of back off, and they're still scared of Mother. Now they're still scared of Mother, and Hunter at this point he is talking about, you know what, like it's not safe here. We need to get out of here. Mother intervenes in that conversation right there and lets him know, it's like, okay, yes, the plan is to move to the tropical zone, but that's gonna happen after Tempest gives birth.
Pretty much revealing to the children that Tempest is pregnant.
Exactly. So the children come to this realization that, oh my god, like she's pregnant, right? Big reveal, I guess, for those children. Now, Mother does try to comfort them by telling them a kid story, and she brings up the three little pigs.
Oh, well, I want to point out that she's like, oh, I'm going to tell you guys a story. It's like, oh, well, we're only allowed to listen to Mithraic scriptures.
That's right.
We can only hear Mithraic stories. It's like, oh, well, that's not going to fly
You
anymore.
don't
not
have to
gonna
worry
fly.
about that.
That's not gonna fly in this house.
You no longer need to follow such rules.
No, that's
Stories can be great fun and be a way to teach you lessons. And that's when Campion is like, oh, they don't want to hear it. It's like, oh, nonsense. You used to love my stories. Like, oh, well, I lied. And
That-
that's when you see a little bit of Mother. She's like, oh, a little taken back by that comment.
Yeah, unnecessary comment, being rude, unpolite to Mother, and showing a side of him that he's never really seen before. But I mean, that's what Campion's trying to do right now in front of these other kids. I guess they're giving him the little bit of the encouragement that he needs to act on his own now.
Well, it could just be that he is just trying to fit in with them, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's also very true. So, Campion kind of backs off. She starts telling the story of the three little pigs. And I personally have not heard this story been told this creepy and this tone.
I was so excited. She was telling the way she was describing everything, the way she was doing her facial expressions, the way she was like blowing, and I'll huff and I'll puff, and she does this little blow. I was impressed. I was interested. I've heard this story millions of times, and I want it more. Like,
Yeah, they do cut off the story. And I do want to say that good on the actress to make the three little pigs sound so fucking intense.
I also
Yeah.
did like the reaction of the children because this is a completely new story to them. They've never heard this
Yeah.
before, and they kind of like
They're scared.
she's telling them the story. They're kind of like moving back a little bit, like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen? But I mean, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down, right? But these kids were frightened.
yeah.
Now, after that, it actually goes straight into the intro. Intro happens. And here we go. It does give you a little cutscene. It's not even a scene. It more gives you a subtext of what's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, it's like a little, what's the word I'm looking for? It's called a, like an, it is just
Like
a wall of text.
disclosure, I guess.
No, there's a word for it, but I'm losing it right now. Maybe if I remember it in post, I'll add
I
the
appreciate that.
actual word. But it's just a little wall of text that comes out. Exposition.
There you okay.
Its exposition says 10 years later,
10 years
10
earlier.
years earlier, thousands of Mithraic passengers make a 13-year journey to Kepler. Okay, so I just want to point out that little timeline that seems a little faulty, where they say, oh, 10 years earlier. But also, it's going to take them 13 years to get there, so it's a little iffy. But they do say that the time in the simulation is wonky, so maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Maybe.
Anyways, they're saying that their bodies are in hibernation state, while their minds are able to interact with one another as if they were awake. I hate this exposition because I feel like the scenes for themselves should speak for the story. I feel like it's a classic show don't tell. But are we supposed to like have forgotten that these characters went to sleep at the end of the last episode.
I feel like they kind of show that so we're able to be, I guess, fully aware of what's happening because they
Yeah.
kind of just show us them in a giant room that looks a little bit like not super high definition. It does look different, but I guess that's just so we're very aware that they're in hibernation mode.
Well,
And
they
in
show a
the sim,
transitional scene of the
Yeah,
the
like
data
digital-
loading in.
Yeah, like the digital.
like the Matrix.
It was pretty cool. But I actually did appreciate it. I thought it. I mean, it was just for like.
Made me aware.
Yeah.
It didn't
like,
really distract your train of thought. It made it very clear. This is what's gonna happen. This is what it does. Don't worry about
I
it.
do
It
think
distracted
that
me.
really. I think the scene speaks for itself, but the exposition, I think, just for people that might not understand it or might think too much into it or something, it just helps them to like reinforce this is what's happening.
You know what? Now that we're talking about it a little more, I am gonna say that maybe it is for people that are watching it the next week. You know, these
Okay.
episodes did come out weekly basis every Thursday, I think, and maybe it's just supposed to be reminding people like, oh yeah, at the end of the last episode, it showed the Mary and Caleb going into hibernation with their new son Paul.
That's right.
Okay,
All right,
I'm
now-
fine with it now. Whatever. I'm over it.
Well, going back to it, so now we're talking about virtual reality. They go into the sim, as they call it in this show. Marcus and Sue are talking about, they're on top of a little sculpture, I guess it would be their room in the sim. And they're talking about Paul, how it's not their son. It's like, oh, it's not really there. Should we talk to him? Should we not talk to him? Now, they just obviously decide to go with Paul because it kind of does skip. And you see Paul building maybe like a 3D model with his mind. And then just he does like hand signs,
He's
whatever you want to call it.
he's using his hands and we're supposed to assume his mind
Right.
to create these structures like an architect.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he's creating these structures, and basically before that, Sue does say, "He's like, oh, I can't be his mother. I can't." Marcus asks why. She's like, "Yo, you know why I can't be his mother." Now, they actually show up. They kind of skip like a little bit, and they're actually talking to Paul now. Paul's asking. Marcus is asking Paul, is like, "Whoa, like,
What
why
are
aren't
you
you
doing?"
playing with the other kids? Like, what's going on?" Paul does say that they don't want to play with him because they think he's kind of weird, which I was like, it's kind of mean, but all right. I mean, times change, but everything's kind of the same. You know
I'm
what I
gonna
mean?
I'm gonna pause it right there, and I wanna point out that Paul is kind of a little bit weirded out that his parents are talking to him. Like he
That's
even
right.
asks, like, why are you talking to me?
You never talk to me.
You never talk to me. And just, I got a sense in going back to episode 2 when they see his son, they pick him up because obviously he was being taken care of by other people. His reaction when he sees his parents, he's not happy. He doesn't run to them. You know.
He just
when-
says hello, father. Hello,
yeah,
mother."
that's it. Like just
Like an android.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, I was kind of like, okay, well, they weren't close to his son, and this proves it. Like, how can like the parents don't speak to his son?
Mhm.
I mean, like it was just close. And then Sue being hesitant about being
The mother.
the mother to Paul, it just makes me think that Sue went through something.
Oh, right.
Like it just makes me like, okay, maybe she had. I think it's more personal by the way she reacted. So I
But
think
it
it was
could
like,
have something to do with her knowing that she's unable to bear children, right?
Right? Yeah.
okay.
But I mean,
I was
then-
gonna mention that. I was like, I think maybe she wasn't able to have kids or she miscarried.
Yeah, she might have had some sort of traumatic experience
Uh-huh.
that may be alluded to later.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so that's where we're at right now. Now Marcus sees him playing, not doing anything, just by himself. He comes up to him and he's like, you know what? He sees the other kids playing Duck Duck Goose all in a circle. Marcus is like, okay, cool. He's being kind of mean to the other kids, not really, just making faces to them. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna play with my kid, right?
Yeah,
'Cause-
because I like that. I like that Marcus kind of took over that father role really quick, and he's like,
Embraced it.
yeah, like you're not gonna play with my kid, okay? And he like made a little face or like a little like punch.
He made a little
sign.
gesture to the kid,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you guys are gonna get it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching you, like something, and he starts playing with Sue and his new son.
Basically, yeah. Now, he does go and starts playing Duck Duck Goose with him, and he's making the noises. He's going all out, giving the goose a personality, basically running around the whole place. And he actually interrupts the kids. He goes in between the children. He's like, "Oh, excuse me, children. because we get a real badass goose coming in, right?
Yeah.
He runs through them, and he actually runs around the area, leaves the zone where the kids were playing. Then he actually enters somewhere else, and he gets interrupted by one of the girls that's there. He's like, "Are you entertaining yourself?"
It's like a cleric or a priest or something.
Yeah.
So they were playing. Their son now is chasing them, and they're having a great time. And then they run into this little prayer circle or something.
Now, that girl that does interrupt him, I do want to bring up that I thought it was real cool, how he's like, "Oh, like sorry," he apologizes, and she's like, "No, like it pleases me to see a man of war bringing joy back into his life, because he looked like he was having a lot of fun with this kid, and I'm pretty sure she was used to seeing him at war, like covered in dirt. I don't know, just like completely
being
not
a captain,
normal.
like
Exactly.
in his role.
Yeah, she says, "Our new Eden will never know war."
All right, so they continue playing after that conversation with the girl. They continue playing, they leave, and then it actually cuts back to Kepler 22b. He wakes up because remember in the last episode he was remember they had
He
just
was
found
knocked
him.
out after being thrown into the hole by
Exactly.
those creatures.
So now he wakes up and he sees Sue, and Sue's obviously next to him. They got him back. He's like, "Where's Paul? Where's Paul?" Right? He's freaking out.
Yeah.
That
I
was
love
instant.
that.
Immediately thinking about his son.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me. It just makes you realize how they had
The connection.
a very good connection while they were in the sim.
I guess that kind of shows those 13 years maybe that they were in the sim, or that whole 13-year trip actually made him like, you know what, this is my son, and I am gonna take care of him.
Yeah, he embraced the role.
Yeah, he really did. Now, while that happened, he wakes up. Sue explains to him, is like letting him know, is like, "Oh, mother has taken the children. She has them." Because father thinks that, I mean, the whole ark is destroyed, because that's where he's at. He wakes up and he's in the remains of the ark, completely torn in half. There's
Yeah.
bodies everywhere. Well, actually, no. There's people like the Mithraic.
They're searching for bodies.
They're searching for bodies and
survivors.
survivors and all that stuff. And she explains to him, you know what? They do have them. They have our children.
The necromancer has.
The necromancer has our children.
I hate to nitpick, but I also love to nitpick. That this scene right here where Caleb is waking up to Sue and Sue's explaining the whole situation, I actually don't like that.
Really?
It's the way that it's being explained. Nothing against Sue
Right.
as an actress. It's the situation where it's like the camera's zooming out and you get to see like the full disaster of this whole crash that happened, and she's still like explaining what happens with the kid and what they're going to try to do. We need to get him back. Pretty much setting up the next scenes. I hate that because I feel like the scenes could have spoke for themselves. I feel like they could have just had that pan out without the dialogue of Sue explaining like, "Oh, the necromancer has kids."
I feel like she mentioned it though because he's just the captain. He's not. They have to follow the leader, which obviously is not Marcus. We'll see later on.
Right.
And they need to ask for permission. They can't just separate from the group. I feel like that's why she mentioned it. Like
It feels like exposition, and I feel like whenever a show does that, it's not the right way. It shouldn't
unnecessary.
feel like the show is explaining something to you.
Okay.
It should feel like you're experiencing the moment as it happens. So like it took me out of it, and it made me remember, oh yeah, I'm watching a show that's trying to remind me of the story structure.
Broke the fourth wall without actually breaking it.
In a way, I guess, yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
It's all good. It's all good. Now, jump scene. It goes back to Mother, Hunter, Tempest, and all of them. Right. Hunter's talking to Campion that there's nothing really out there. Like there's no beast out there, right? Because at this point they already encountered that. Tempest is the only one that's seen them. No one else has really seen any evidence, and he talks about that. He's like, oh, like there's no bodies. There's just a little bit of blood here and there. And Father comes in and he's like, hey guys, it's time for dinner. Everyone starts moving in. Campion doesn't really want to go. And this is where Father actually is talking to him. And he gives him like, you know what? This is a claw.
Well, sorry. Right before that scene, actually, it's Hunter having a moment with Campion. So again, Hunter is the kid that's supposed to be the super smart kid.
The 205 IQ.
205 IQ, apparently. And he's instilling doubt into Campion. Like, he's the one telling him that, like, oh yeah, like the big bad wolf that she's talking about, that's her. There are no monsters, right?
Yeah.
And then Campion uses his own knowledge that like, oh yeah, well, they used to tell us that there were serpents down those holes, but now I know that that was a lie, just to try to protect us. So like, see, she's lying to us now because she wants to keep us here.
Yeah, and Campion brings up basically the same words Hunter uses with Father, and it just proves how easily manipulated
This
he
kid
can
is.
be. Yeah, he
Yeah,
can be.
yeah.
That lower IQ.
Yeah.
Sheeple, the sheeple.
So yeah, it's Hunter manipulating Campion to go against his family, which is these androids. As much as Hunter will say that they are not his mother and father, they are.
Yeah.
They've been with
Like
with
12
him
years.
and cared for him his whole life.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Go on. So
okay.
it's conversation with Father and Campion at this point.
Yeah, Father's asking him to wait, like, because they're going into the dinner. He tells him wait, and he actually shows him the claw. And he's like, look, this is what they call a claw. The threat is real.
This is what they use to
Exactly.
kill you.
Exactly.
This claw can murder you. But it seems like Campion is kind of whatever about it. He just shakes it off and goes back in with the rest of the kids.
Yeah, like he believes Hunter more than his parents, and I've been saying this. It bothers me so much how for 12 years these droids took care of him and have protected him, but no matter what, he's believing the humans more. Like first time it was Marcus with Protect Your Eyes, which okay, thank God he did that. But now it's Hunter.
Thank
And-
Soul he did that. Because
Yeah.
Soul is their deity here.
That's true.
Alright,
And
cool.
now
And we all
it's
believe in
happening
soul
with
in
Hunter.
this household.
Alright, so it jumps to the scene where they're all sitting down, and it kind of shows the children coughing, like how the first kids were, like they were starting to get sick.
Yeah, so
So-
it shows that there is something that is getting them sick now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does show that. Now, at this point, they start talking. They're sitting around the table, and there's a little bit of argument between Tempest and Hunter at the dinner table. Mother interrupts that.
It's because like, oh, why isn't she having to do any work? Why are we outside
Yeah.
slaving for her? And it's like, okay, well, she has to.
She's pregnant. She has to take care and focus on the baby.
Yeah, she needs to rest to make sure that she can provide for this body, as in a biological sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. At this point, I believe Campion walks in after that little argument happens. So he walks in late to dinner. Father does mention, like, it's my fault that he's late to dinner. Now, Mother kind of points out, of that I have no doubt, Father. Kind of being, like,
Yeah.
stingy about it, I guess.
I really like that just because it reminds me of my parents. How if I do something, my dad usually tries to like protect me. If my mom's gonna get mad at me, he's like, "Oh, I told her to do that." So it kind of just like brought me back to yes, mother and father.
It's very human.
Yeah.
Basically. Now, at this point, that happens. They sit down and they wanna, you know what? Let's have a civil conversation with no rudeness or anything like that. And they actually pick one of the girls to actually start the conversation. What was her name?
Holly?
Well, before that, I want to point out this more about the conversation that Tempest and Hunter have,
Okay.
where Hunter is kind of being like, oh well, like this, and that, and Tempest's like, oh well, you're not in charge anymore. It's like, do you know who I am? It's like,
Oh, that's right.
do you know who my
Yeah.
father was? And it's like, oh well, who was your father? He's dead now.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, oh, like you shouldn't be saying that.
Yeah. Tempest was kind of picking at Hunter in that scene.
Yeah, calling their roles stupid.
Yeah.
And Hunter is like, oh, you're gonna burn for that. Like, oh, you're going
Is
to
that
hell for
the
that.
scene where Tempest is like, oh.
Yeah,
Come
Tempest
strike me.
responds to like, oh, you're gonna burn for that. It's like, oh, really? All right, soul, strike me down. I'm ready.
This is like the.
At that moment,
I don't think it's the first time, but I think it just reassures you that Tempest does not believe in soul anymore. I
yeah,
feel
she's
like-
basically challenging him.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that happened when she was raped by one of the high
That would definitely
Yeah.
make you. That would definitely
Yeah.
make you question your religion.
Yeah. Disbelief in the church,
But
probably.
so Tempest is shouting, "Oh yeah, so where you at?" And the mother comes in, and is like, "What are you guys doing?
Yeah,
why
like-
are you guys shouting? Is this what you did in church? Well, we're not doing it now."
Yeah.
And that's when she goes into like, "Oh, we're gonna have
Civil conversation.
polite conversation, and we're gonna eat." And that's the moment when Father is saying like, "Oh, would you like to hear a joke?" No jokes. Mother wants polite conversation.
At this point, he does point out. So Mother does point out to the girl. I forgot her name.
Polly?
Holly. It's like, Holly, you pick a topic that we could talk about, and she actually brings up you know what? Let's talk about baby names. Like, have you thought of a name that you want to put for this baby? And he's like, well, actually, I don't even know the sex yet. Now Hunter jumps in here and he's like, well, actually, you should be naming the kid Otho. And she's like, no, like, don't say that. And he's like, what? Like, you're glad he chose you? And he starts kind of arguing about it. And they kind of start going at each other in the middle of dinner, which is supposed to be a nice, polite conversation. And it turned into a little argument here. And she starts actually coughing out blood. She starts
Well,
coughing
yeah,
out blood.
because she attacks Hunter basically for saying that she asked to be raped.
Dude, yeah, that broke my
And-
heart. Like, how can Hunter just blame the victim?
Okay, well, Hunter's a dick.
Well, yeah.
Hunter's gonna do dick things, right?
Period.
So it's I'm not surprised at this point, but it is that whatever is happening to their kids, it seems to be that they are getting really sick, because there's this moment where Tempest tries to attack Hunter. She exerts all this energy, and then she starts coughing blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, she starts coughing blood. Mother carries her, takes her out of the room. Everyone's staring at each other like, oh my god, like she's coughing out blood. Like, what's gonna happen? Boom. Goes back, and it actually goes back to the scene where Marcus is back at the Ark, and he's actually trying to convince Your Eminence, which is the highest ranking member that's currently alive from the Ark, to save the children. To save the children themselves, and how they're very important. And they start arguing right there. There's a little bit of conflict, I guess, between the higher ranking member and the captain, which is Marcus 2.0. And he starts saying that, oh, well, they're important. He's like, no, we need to maintain the people that are here alive. They're going back and forth on the subject. And one of the other soldiers who's actually scouting for bodies, he interrupts the conversation while they're arguing back and forth. He's like, hey, we found your wife.
Your Eminence.
Your Eminence. Now, they actually move. They show like a little funeral that was happening for the wife. They put it on fire, and they start, not chanting, but they start reciting one of their little
Hymns, I
guess
guess,
you would call
like
it
a
a
prayer or something.
yeah, a
Yeah.
little prayer to send her to the other side. And Marcus and Sue are watching this from afar, and he's like, well, one of the things in this book that is damn right. I can't quote it correctly, but he does speak about the book, and one of the things that is damn right about it is that you reap what you sow. Now, at this point, I believe it jumps back right after that conversation.
he says that because he was trying to convince them, Your Eminence, to go for the children, and the guy doesn't want to go because he thinks that the kids are dead. He's like,
Yeah, he
"Oh,"
doesn't want to risk his own life, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's why Marcus is so, I guess,
Adamant.
He's bothered by it.
bothered by it, and that's why he says that, which also, like, just another factor, adding another factor to, like, proving that Marcus is in love with Paul. Like, this is his kid.
Yeah, it's not that he wants to go and get the children. He wants to go and get his child.
Yeah, his child.
At this point, after the whole funeral, you reap what you sow. It actually cuts back to the kids in the house, and at this point, Campion is starting to be like, or he's starting to realize for himself, like, you know what? Maybe Mother is killing the child without her noticing. Because everyone's coughing up, everyone's sick. There's blood everywhere. Blood with Tempest.
All the other kids are in bed and they're clutching their blankets and coughing, and Campion's saying, "Oh, why aren't I sick?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that goes back to that scene that we had talked about earlier about guys, it's not poison. So at this point, we're like,
Well, I think you're jumping a little too far ahead. From there, it's just father, after having that conversation with Campion, like, oh, why are the kids getting sick? It must be Mother. Father goes out to talk to Mother, and she seems to have listened to the conversation, because she asks Father's like, what if I am killing these kids
Yeah.
and I just don't know?
Yeah, Mother starts to believe that she's at fault and
Yeah,
she's the cause.
She's questioning her own ability to care for them.
Yeah.
She actually starts thinking that she's killing them without her noticing.
And
that
what if she killed the first generation of kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so at that point, Mother asks Father, is like, you know what? You have to deactivate me if that's actually what's happening. And then she floats away into the distance with her crucifix stance, Carlos.
A T-pose.
Now,
T-pose stance.
at this point, as Mother floats away, Father's trying to get her attention, like, Mother, like it's not you killing the children, but Mother just goes off on her
And
own.
she's already off.
Yeah, she's already out and flying with her Jesus Christ stance. And Marcus, it goes back to Marcus now because this episode is kind of jumping back and forth.
Yeah, we have two
2 points of view.
two plots now that we're
Yeah.
following: the survivors of the Ark and the survivors with
The
mother and
atheist.
father. Yeah, the
Yeah,
atheist,
the-
the atheist camp. We should call them that.
Atheist camp. Okay, I like that. Marcus is asking Sue, and it's like, okay, what did you tell him about your medical skills? Because at this point, I mean, he was passed out, and she obviously took care of him medically. But this person, Sue, the actual Sue, I believe she didn't have that skill. And
She was a
does
soldier.
Exactly,
Yeah.
she was just a soldier. How do you know medical, right? So she brings it up. It's like, okay, I read up about it on
The sim.
on the sim.
She lies. She says she
Yeah,
lied
she
to them.
lies.
Yeah, which basically, let's keep in mind, guys, that the sim was the time on it was kind of weird, and I mean,
I mean,
years
they
passed in there.
were asleep for 13 years.
13
supposedly.
years.
Yeah, now, so okay. Sue is very sad at this point, and she starts talking about how she should have been there. She should have been able to protect Paul, and it goes back to the sim, or the virtual world, whatever you would like to call it. Paul's building a city, and he starts talking about a prophecy, the pentagonal prophecy.
I like this. Like, finally, we're gonna hear the prophecy that was mentioned in episode 1. Okay.
Yeah, now the prophecy is about an orphan boy in an empty land that will lead us to the city of peace.
And
Now-
help unlock the Mithraic mysteries.
That's right.
And at this point, Paul actually ponders with his parents, like, "Oh, there's at least one orphan boy on this thing. I actually know of one. His name is Peter. His parents were high-ranking priests, so maybe he's gonna end up being the prophet."
And as they say that, they actually, as as Paul says that he knows an orphan boy in the ship, they look at each other because technically Paul
Paul.
is an orphan boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in their back of their head, that's still there. It's like, oh my god, like he's gonna find out that we're not really his parents, you know?
You know, if he becomes the prophet.
That's right. I
If
mean,
he-
that's if he is the prophet, of course.
I do think
But-
that's him.
I mean, the way that they show that he's built this city, he is the architect of this city that he's saying that
Yeah.
the prophet's gonna find. He's found it in the sim.
Which also kind of, I guess it was I think it's being foreshadowed in episode 2 when Father asked Paul, like, are you sure you're not the smartest one?
Mhm.
So I do think Paul is the prophet boy. There's, maybe other people might believe it's Campion, since technically he is an orphan.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here and say, how do we even know the prophecy's real?
I mean,
I mean, if you're on the atheist side, you shouldn't even believe in this
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
in this
So,
prophecy.
as an atheist, I'm gonna say, fuck the prophecy.
Straight
Not
up.
actually atheist. I'm gonna just point that out. Moving on.
Now, at this point, in this scene, Paul's asking Marcus, is like, would you think that, ask him if he would be a good soldier. Marcus explains, like, wait, no, like, you're still a boy. Like, only atheists recruited kids. Then at that point, the camera just focuses on Marcus, and Marcus is going on, I guess, on an...
like a flashback.
Yeah, like a
He
little
is
flashback.
having a flashback,
He is
yeah.
having a flashback. Actually.
So it's a flashback within a flashback.
It's a
Yeah.
flashback within a flashback of the flashback, guys. Now it's Caleb as a kid, and he's during. They show it's during the war, obviously, because I mean Caleb's a kid.
Well,
AKA
they don't show us the war. It shows that it's this line of
like-
soldiers, and they're shouting, "War, war, war." So there
You
might be
would
a
assume that
there
it's
might be a war going on. There might be a war.
I don't want to
going
say it was implied it was war, but I mean it was shoved down my throat in that scene. So at this point, they pretty much show one kid who is obviously Caleb, or also known as Marcus 2.0. And Marcus, Caleb is actually fighting a girl there. And they start fighting. There's a bunch of people around them. They're encouraging to fight.
on. Some sort of training
Some
exercise. I
sort
guess.
of
Yeah.
training exercise, or just to get them all riled up.
Oh, that's
I
true,
don't
right? It
know.
could just be the way that they lived, right?
Exactly. So at that point, Caleb is taking a beating. He's on the ground. Guy comes up, gets him up. He's like, you know what? Put this on. He puts on like a yellow backpack, something going on.
He calls it turbocharge.
Think of it as turbocharge, right? Okay. Well, whatever. They start. They look like they get like even powered up or something.
The girl
Yeah.
shouts like "ah!" Like she's
Yeah.
Like she
She's
gets
ready for it.
Like a giant adrenaline rush or something. And
Yeah.
they start fighting, and the fight gets a little bit more intense. They
It-
start going at each other.
they're moving faster and they're doing things that their bodies shouldn't be able to do, like flying up off the ground.
Yeah.
And after that, it kind of skips like a day or two. I'm
It
not
cut-
gonna say days.
It, like,
It transitions.
It
It transitions.
transitions, yeah,
into
into-
like a battlefield, and they're fighting now with the Mythracians.
Yeah, it shows the two kids that were fighting each other. They're
Uh-huh.
now holding guns, same battery, same packs on their back, and they're shooting and killing these Mythric soldiers. It looks like they're doing a really good job. I gotta point
Yeah.
out.
I'm pretty sure because they're turbocharged now.
They're super turbocharged.
And at that point, they're running through it. They're running through just the streets, all torn up, and they do show Caleb jumping like possible like 10 feet in incredible fucking distance.
He jumps over a Mythric soldier, then turns back and shoots them. Like
Yeah.
it's a really really badass fucking.
Yeah, it's a really
Anyways.
badass fight scene here, I guess. No, not even a fight scene. It's more of a
Just a battle.
just a battle scene. Now after that, the the girl soldier starts to like
She's clutching at her heart.
she's clutching at her heart. She's having like some sort of seizure. Foam is coming out of her mouth.
She's on the ground.
She's on the ground, and the backpack that she has starts. I guess it was.
It's making a sound. It's making a sound.
Turbocharged. Because it starts beeping real loud. He takes it off of her, and now it just looks red. It looks like it's flashing red, and then he throws it at a couple other soldiers. Boom! Flashback ends.
Well,
Only
at
explode.
that moment, it shows the pack exploding, and the way it explodes, I gotta say, it reminds me of the explosion
Of the
from
shriek.
of Heaven Arc.
Oh.
Yeah, with all
No,
the
it's the
lights.
Heaven Arc when it crash landed into
Okay,
the
you're-
planet, and it had that giant it was like a nuclear energy or something. It was some
Yeah.
kind of light that was coming from this explosion. We see that same sort of light from this thing, and we actually get to see what it does to the bodies of these soldiers. In that
Yeah.
freeze frame, it shows that the explosion as it comes in contact with
The bodies.
with the bodies, they start to disintegrate. So
Yeah.
it's a massive amount of energy that's in these power packs that they strapped to these kids. They basically strapped fusion batteries, I guess, to these kids.
Yeah. Now flashback ends, and he doesn't go back to the sim into that flashback. Both flashback ends
Yeah.
simultaneously. Now they're
Back to
actually
present.
back to the present. He's actually sitting down at the around the arc where it's all destroyed, and one of the guys actually is trying to like move some wrench in some giant pipe that's going on. Breaks it. Boom! Milk comes out. He starts screaming, "Oh, there's milk! Finally, something to drink!"
And everyone's huddling around the pipe that burst, and this white liquid, I assume is milk,
Milk.
that they're gathering
it's milk.
in these cups, and they're drinking, and they seem so happy about the milk.
Now we see this soldier. He actually takes a cup, fills it up, and he starts walking towards Marcus. Kind of slow. He's like decided, like, you know what, this is your.
It's like
here you go.
Captain, milk.
Yeah.
Gives
And
him-
Marcus takes it. He's taking the swig from it. And that's when I believe the soldier introduces himself. It's like, I'm Lucius.
Isn't he Malleus? No. Talks about his father, Malleus. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
because I'm Lucius, and
You served with my
you
father
served
in
with
the
my
war.
father in the war. Is Malleus, and he's like, oh yeah, like, what a great man, right?
Yeah, Marcus says, "Oh yes, I remember, great man." And then there's a little pause, and Lucius is, "So you forgive him?" And again, another pause from Marcus
Marcus.
2.0, and isn't that what Soul
Soul.
teaches us?
I like that. I like how that character keeps using religion for his advantage.
Yeah.
Because he's still trying to hide his character, who he really is. So he keeps throwing religion back to these people, so they don't have to fight it back.
They don't question it.
They don't question it at all.
And
Because
it
I mean,
seems
he's
like
right.
it seems like Lucius actually finds some sort of assurance or some sort of closure in that moment.
Yeah.
Definitely, he did seem pretty happy that he was like, like my father is forgiven.
Yeah.
Now,
We don't know what he did.
we don't know what he did, right? But I mean, okay, he's
Neither
forgiven.
does
That.
Marcus.
I mean, the only ones that know is apparently Lucius and his father, because no one else knows anything. But at this point, Marcus does kind of veer off the conversation, because I mean, he doesn't really know what he just forgave this man's father of, and he's like, has anyone investigated the cracks? Jump scene. They're actually inside the cracks now, and they're investigating the cracks. Marcus is in there, and he comes out.
He says, "Oh, there might be something living down there."
There is definitely something living.
Oh,
down
he says
there.
definitely. Okay.
Now, there's definitely something living down there, and I believe
Lucius starts like he continues the line for
He says another sort of prophecy. He says, I think the line is, and they said that there will be demons. Beneath the promised land will be demons. And when the light is shone upon them, they will look like us.
yes.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he's saying that you actually hear. Obviously, we know now the necromancer or mother We hear the shrieks in the background, loud. People start freaking out and start running for shelter. They all run into the cracks because there's nowhere else to hide. You're out in the open.
Dude,
The ark is
yeah.
completely destroyed. And at this point, they're all hiding. They're all huddled together under
I
the
just want
cracks.
to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to say the shrieks, dude. Every time I hear it, they bring me goosebumps.
Chills.
And then seeing the reaction, like, you need to hide now.
Yeah.
That's basically what's happening.
They're all huddled. They're all huddled together. They're all under the cracks. They're all looking at each other, not knowing what to do. And Marcus is looking at the guy that's Eminence, the high
the one that's in
ranking-
charge.
Exactly, the one that's in charge. And he's like,
Give us your orders.
Your Eminence, what are your orders? Now, at this point, he doesn't really know what to do. So the Eminence doesn't really know what to do. So he tells a random soldier, he's like, go scout over there and see if that takes us anywhere. Okay.
Pretty much buying time, right?
Pretty much exactly buying time to think of another idea, I
Yeah.
personally believe.
Yeah.
And at this point, the scene keeps going, and it jumps to Mother and what she was actually there to do, I believe. She actually goes into the Ark, the remains of the Ark, and she's walking around. She's looking for something. We don't really know what it is until she actually uses an ability of hers that we hadn't seen before.
No,
we
we did see it because when she broke into the heaven for the first time, she used this power. It's like she uses her breath to kind of disintegrate whatever she's blowing onto, and so she's blowing a hole in this little safe or whatever it is, and the scene showed us that there's these vials in there. It looks like they're blood or something.
Yeah,
they're not blood. We'll see what they are in a minute. But she's taking these vials and she's putting them in a little pouch and she wraps it around herself.
Now, at that point, as Mother's getting the medicine, vials, whatever you want to call it, it goes back to Marcus and Eminence, and they're all still trying to decide what they're going to do. Eminence tells one of the soldiers, he's like, oh, you go out there. No, he tells Marcus himself. He's like, you go out there.
Take a few of the men.
Take a few of the men and basically distract Mother, like guide her somewhere else.
So that we can get
fights
away.
that. Exactly, Marcus fights that. And he's like, wait, why don't you send one of your androids that you're supposed to keep the people alive from for the promised land, whatever you want to call it. Hesitant, he does look at both his twin androids, I believe.
Yeah, I think they're twins.
Right? No, he looks at them, sends one out. She starts running at an incredible speed, and Mother chases after them.
I want to point out that he names the android. I don't remember the name. I could look it up in a second.
Yeah.
But I point that out because it shows that this guy actually has some sort of attachment to these androids where they have names for him. And of course, like his first thought was to get rid of the soldiers rather than his own personal androids. You can go on. I'll find the name right now.
At this point, Mother's obviously floating.
Wait, sorry. Vorinia.
Varinia? My God.
Yeah.
Varinia, go out there. Send Varinia, takes off, charging full speed, incredible speed, by the way. Obviously,
Mother
she's an
sees her.
android. Mother sees her floating around, and I thought this scene was kind of cool because Mother's floating. The android turns back, boom, bumps into Mother in front of her, falls to the ground. Mother looks, basically shrieks at her.
Nothing happened.
Does not completely destroy the android. It seems like it did affect her though, because she's on the
Turn
ground
around, like
having a seizure.
Yeah.
Mother gets on top of her, looks at her eye, which I thought was kind of interesting. Looks at one of the eyes, takes it out.
Oh well, this is after she fists her, pulls the processor unit, processor unit out from the android's abdomen, and that's when the android, seemingly dead, just stops moving. And that's at that moment. Mother looks at the eyes and it's like, oh, very pretty eyes, and pulls one out of the fucking socket.
At that point, that android actually gets up and it starts running away, but falls into one of the holes.
Manages to get away by actually grabbing the pouch that Mother had on her chest.
Yeah.
Throws it to the side. Mother, concerned for the children, thinking about the medicine now that we know.
Yeah.
She's quickly putting all the medicine back in the pouch. The android, trying to get away, looks back and falls into a hole.
Yeah. Which I thought was pretty, I guess, amazing since she didn't have a processor anymore. Unless she's running on two.
It might be something like that, right? We don't know what kind of models that
this
That's true.
Android was.
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
'cause-
but it's definitely, it would be, I guess, a more top-of-the-line android that the high-ranking priest would be able to afford.
Yeah,
That's
and
probably
maybe
why he was
right?
hesitant to get rid of it.
That's
Because that
fair.
was what's
That's
going to
fair.
happen.
That's fair.
and maybe even one that Mother hadn't seen since she was inspecting the eye.
Yeah, whatever it is, the android was still functioning enough to be able to get away. Not very far. It could have just been that they could have just shown that the android died, but this may be leading into something else with the android later on because we don't see the android die. We just watch her fall into
the
a
hole
deep
and
hole.
assume that she's dead.
Yeah, and mother looks down the hole, looks up, walks away.
Now, after that scene, after the android falls into the hole, it jumps back to the religious people. They're actually still in the cracks, and mother actually flies up and starts making sound waves. So everything around them starts kind of cracking, starts kind of moving.
Yeah.
So it's kind of shaking under.
Yeah, she's blasting the ground at
With her shrieks. Now everyone starts panicking. They kind of start running to that tunnel that the eminence told them to follow, and he actually falls to one of the holes. That tunnel was connected to one of the bigger holes on the ground and falls through. Everyone kind of stops, like go back, and that's kind of basically where that scene ends. Do you guys have anything else to add to that? Like, why is it connected to those holes, really?
Oh, you know, I didn't even think about that. I just thought that they were like cracks in the wall, but yeah, they do seem to be borrowed holes that were unveiled after the ship crashed into the planet. We don't know what's going on with these holes. They're somehow connected to the bigger holes where we assume that the snakes used to live.
Yeah.
These giant alien snakes that we are introduced to in the first episode.
Are
The
they
skeletons, at least.
I mean, are they really aliens? Is this kind of their planet?
They're alien to us.
That's true.
The whole planet's alien to us.
Yeah.
All right. Now at this point, it goes back to the actual atheist camp.
Thank you.
To the atheist camp, and you could see that all the kids are getting sicker. All the kids are coughing now. They're going back and forth in the scenes, talking to each other, but it doesn't let you like forget. Like, these people are getting sick. Now, Father does tell them, like, you know what? Like, it's gonna be fine. They're gonna be fine. And Paul's talk about how he's sad because his mouse is lost. So he can't find his mouse. Campion says that he knows exactly where it is. And Father, can you follow me and help me get this mouse? He actually takes him outside. Father's a little bit behind him. Campion's he looks like he's a little bit in a rush, and he takes him to one of where they have the food. Is like a little storage room.
Carbos.
No, where he has the carbos. I'm sorry, where he has the little carbos, where like a little storage room. Goes in. Father, this is where the mouse is. I see it. I just can't reach it. Okay. Father's like, okay, move aside. He goes in. Father puts his arm in. He's like, I don't see anything. I see as the frame is actually looking at Father. Behind you can see Campion. He actually leaves. And he closes the door behind, locks in Father, which by lock in I mean that he puts a piece of wood.
Yeah, we need to point
this out.
The door is flimsy as shit. It is a weak ass fucking door. It is like just basically like 3 planks of wood, and then he's using another plank of wood to bar the door, quote unquote. And at this point, Campion's like, oh yeah, Father is locked away. Let's get away.
Yeah.
And Father knows immediately what Campion did. And he's like, Campion, let me out of here. I'm going to be really mad if you don't let me out of here.
He's still screaming for Campion. Campion's obviously out running. He goes and gets the other kids.
I'm more than sure. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying anything new. You guys saw it. He's doing this just because he doesn't want... I feel like he doesn't want to lose trust in Campion. Like he knows his son, and he wants him to just like.
Okay, so you're talking about how he doesn't immediately break the door.
Yeah, he's a droid. It's a fucking just a flimsy door. How you said it. It's like come on, like he doesn't want to break it down. He wants to give Campion the opportunity to open the door.
I guess so. I will suggest that while I agree with you, it could be definitely that. It could be that he's an android. He's following his protocol. He's like, okay, first you gotta do this. First you gotta do that. And then finally, when none of that works, okay, well, I gotta let myself out.
Definitely.
Because he doesn't seem to want to break the door. And he doesn't really break the door.
He just puts his hand.
He punches through the door and it gets the bar out of the way and then opens the door. But by this point, all the kids have run away. Campion went to get the other kids, went to get Tempest. Tempest's like, oh, what are we doing? They seem so nice. Like, no, Mother's love is not real. She's lying to you like she lied to me. We need to go because she's killing us.
Now, keep in mind that all these kids are, like I said, sick. These kids cannot be running. They cannot be anything. They cannot be going up and down like that. Now, they're going up to the wilderness. There's creatures out there that they think don't exist because, like they said, Mother's lying to me. Now, Campion does give the kids herb when he calls it a serpent's heart, and it gives them energy. It gives them a good energy boost to, you know what, guys, let's go. And then they take off, and they seem normal. They seem like they're not sick anymore.
Yeah, they have the energy to run around at this point.
Exactly.
And I want to point out that Serpent's heart, right? First time it's introduced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't see it before.
I would love to see it again in the show. Just pointing that out.
Definitely. Now, Father gets out. At this point, Father starts counting down. He's like, I'm going to give you 3. 1. I'm not joking, guys. 2. And then 3. And he just snaps that door like if it wasn't even there. Obedset gets out, and he's going to the ship because he's going to the ship to go look for the kids. But obviously, as he turns it on, he does all this crazy hand gestures moving all over the ship. I don't know what's going on. I'm amazed by all these things reacting to him moving, and he sends that
just so like I'm pretty sure everyone out there has seen Avengers. Just think of it of Iron Man forming his suit.
Oh yeah, it is definitely some Iron Man interface where the hand gestures make the machinery fucking work.
Just think of it like that.
So now at that point, Father does notice that there's pings on the panel, and he sees that all the kids have a tracking device.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay.
So he knows exactly where they are.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I know where they're at, and obviously Campion's there.
He seems to be readying the ship to take off, and then there's a little message on the thing. We don't know what it means, but I'm assuming it's saying like low battery. And so Father gets out of the seat. He goes back outside. He grabs some carbos and starts fueling the ship with these carbos, right?
And that's him assuming that he could fuel it up with the carbos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Now at that point, the scene stops right there with Father, and it actually goes back to the Mithraeic.
Yeah.
They're actually trying to find a way out of there now because they were exposed out there, and the necromancer could easily kill them in just an open area. And the droid that actually jumps straight to the droid humming a song that actually Mother sings to her kids in the first episode. Marcus goes up to the droid and they tells her, you need to stop and explain why you're humming this. You need to stop.
He seems bothered by the sound.
Yeah.
He seems extremely bothered by this sound. He lets him know, unless you're an atheist, you shouldn't be humming this sound.
Yeah.
And that's actually when the other soldiers explain what the sound is
to them.
The droid says that it's to show to any human that nothing important has been lost.
Yeah, because it's an atheist hymn that she's singing.
Which makes me really upset. I keep mentioning this to Albert and Carlos. It makes me upset because I just took it as something else in the first episode. How she sang it to Campion when he was stillborn, and then they show her singing it to Spiria. And to me, I thought that it was just her trying to
comfort them,
or like just since it had worked with Campion and he was brought to life. I thought she was doing it or because we only see Spiria, to bring Spiria back to life. So I was like, oh, because she's crying when she's singing this song or humming this song. So I just thought it was something more. And then this droid says that line, it just completely shatters my theory and ruins.
Well, I mean, the song means different things to different people. It seems because it's a atheistic hymn, and I guess we assume that Marcus 2.0 is bothered by it because he was atheist and he's trying to leave that behind.
Mm-hmm.
And the soldiers say like, "Oh no, we actually sing the song when we kill atheists because
to them it's like a happy.
It's a victory song.
Yeah, it's a victory song.
Now, at this point, he starts explaining how it's a victory song, and Marcus gets bothered by it. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, Your Eminence. Like, I was just scared that the Necromancer would listen and come back. At this point, the Eminence does tell him, like, I feel like you're not understanding the chain of command. You forget, like, your place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they start walking away, and Sue actually points out to Marcus, because she was looking into the hole, and she actually picks up the vials that Mother dropped. Lets him know, it's like, you know what? This is medicine. That means that the kids are alive. So
the androids don't need the medicine.
Exactly. So after that, it cuts back to the kids, and they're showing walking through a forest, and obviously they're running away. And that's when they talk about actually Campion mentions to them, it's like, you know what, the effects are gonna wear off, because some of the kids are like, oh, like I'm fine now. This is medicine. It's like, no. He's letting them know. It's like, we're gonna get tired real soon. And he talks. They start arguing about, well, not arguing, but they talk like about how there's no food and water.
And how much further is it? It's like, oh, it's like a 2-day walk.
Yeah, a 2-day walk is like, holy hell, dude. Like,
no
food or water for 2 days.
Because Campion's leading the kids to where he saw the ship crash land, saying that, oh, maybe if they're survivors, they will be there.
Yeah, at this point, Paul he actually falls and trips, and the little bag that he had with him and falls down, and his mouse is in there, and he has a little flashback. He has a little
Yeah, while he's
flashback
looking,
of,
trying to pick up his mouse again, he has a flashback to the simulation.
Yeah.
It actually shows where he got the mouse.
Yeah.
and it actually shows Marcus. He's walking up to him again, a great father figure. I just want to
Yes.
point out. He goes to his kid. He walks up to him. He shows him the mouse, and the kid's like, "No, no, no! Like, I don't want to kill it. I don't care if it makes me weaker." And Marcus is like, "No, that's not.
We don't do that
We
anymore."
don't do that anymore. Like, I'm actually gonna give you this mouse so you
Yeah.
can have it
As
as
a
a
pet.
pet."
You're supposed to take care of him.
Exactly. You're supposed to take care of him so you could have it as a pet. And then he actually takes the mouse. He's like, "Oh, like he seems pretty happy about it." Marcus does let him know. It's like, keep in mind that this mouse is also in hibernation. So when we wake up from the sim, this mouse is also gonna be here waiting for you. And Paul gets all excited. He's like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna name him Mouse."
Mouse.
And what creative child.
That imagination.
Maybe
No.
maybe its name was always Mouse.
At this point, flashback ends and it cuts back to Paul looking for the mouse, and he actually finds a little stick figure doll.
It's very similar to the doll that we see in the first episode that the children
Would
of the
play.
first generation are playing with, the atheist camp.
And at this point, he kind of gets scared when he sees that doll. He throws it down. He finds the mouse, takes him with him. He's super happy. At this point, he notices, like, wait, like they didn't wait for me. The other
Yeah.
kids took off.
I'm lost.
I'm lost. Now, goes back, escapes and goes to Marcus and Sue. And they're really excited because Sue actually found that she's able to track the other kids. But she does point out, I was like, wait, Paul
Paul's
separated her
separated.
from the kids. Now, again, I feel kind of bad because they are parents and they're seeing a constant thing that his kid is always
Was
separated from the group,
yeah.
which is what happened at
I
the
didn't even
sim.
think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I got from it. So I was like, oh, okay, like that kind of sucks. But they're excited they could track the kids now.
And the fact that
They're
I
moving.
remember thinking that because they saw the trackers before and
Right.
they're like, oh, we don't know if the trackers show that the trackers don't show that they're alive. It just shows
Yeah.
where they
Where
are.
Yeah.
But the fact that they see that they're
There's
moving
movement.
together and that Paul is actually separated from the group, that actually shows that there's some independence there. That shows that they may be alive. They're probably alive.
Now at this point, Marcus is like, okay, great, give me some of the vials. He takes some of the vials from Sue, and he stands up a little bit in a rush, kind of excited, like he has some news, kind of to sell it to the Eminems a little bit more. Your Eminence, look, we found the vials. Obviously the kids are alive, and we need to search for them. We need to search for the kids, and he shows them the vials. And actually, this is where he actually talks about the chain of command and how you're forgetting the chain of command. Because I brought it up earlier. It's like that actually doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's at this moment where he's like, oh well, we can't afford to get rid of all our soldiers here. He's like, oh, but they're soul children.
Yeah.
As Marcus is
Right.
seems
And-
to be appealing to the religion in everyone else, going against what Eminence is
And
saying.
he actually looked to like the back to make sure that everyone was listening. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah,
that.
everyone
Yeah.
everyone turns to them after he shouts, "But they're souls, children! How dare you fucking leave them or whatever."
Yeah, putting the Eminence
Yeah.
like kind of
Like,
calling him
In a-
out. on his
it's
post.
it's putting him on the spot, and he's of course they're souls, children, and that's why I won't send some soldiers to them. That's why we're all going to them. And then after that interaction, Eminence takes him to the side. It's like, okay, well, you're forgetting the chain of command. I'm gonna remind you. I'm gonna put you in your place.
Oh.
And then it shows that they're
They're
walking in a
carrying-
line, and Marcus is actually one of the soldiers that is carrying
Carrying him.
Eminence on a big chair, a la some emperor or
This is some
pharaoh.
when like the scene from 300 when they're carrying the
Yeah, the Persian.
the
prince.
Persian prince like that.
Yeah.
They have him in a bullshit little throne, obviously, and there's like 4 people carrying him. And I want to point out that the android was next to Marcus, not carrying him.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It was like, know that I care more about the android than I care about you, right? That's like
Yeah.
a little punch to the face because you did cost me an android.
It's like, yeah, like this is not what the android was made for, but I can tell you soldiers what the fuck to do, so you're gonna fucking carry me.
Exactly.
Because I'm too holy to be walked on the ground.
Obviously, the show goes on from there, and it actually cuts back to Mother going back to the atheist camp
With the medicine.
with the medicine, with the vials, and she actually sees that
No one's
she
there.
sees at the door where the Corbos is at, like where the storage room is, kind of just swinging back and forth with a giant hole in the middle. She's like, that's weird because they usually just keep that locked. So she goes into where the beds are at. Everything's kind of like in shambles. Everything's everywhere.
Yeah.
And she starts to freak out, and she goes to the actual room where
Incubation
Tempest
room.
is at, to the incubation room where Tempest is supposed to be at, and she freaks out, and she does a shriek / scream, but it sounded more of like pain, more like concern.
It wasn't
It was
like
anguish.
the shriek we've heard when she's attacking. It was pain.
Yeah, she was in
It was
pain.
just
She is scared.
Now, at that point, she screams. Father stops her. Mother,
Calm down.
like, calm down. He starts walking her to the ship and lets her know. It's like, look, they have implants. Like, they're all here. And Paul is separated. Again, pointing out that Paul is separate from this people.
And that's when Mother's like, okay, well, you will take the ship and pick up the children. I will go get Paul. And Father makes the point to be like, oh, you got to slow down. I need to show you this. And that's when he shows her that the ship analyzed the carbos that he was inserting as fuel. And that's when he reveals that the carbos have been poisoning the kids. The food,
radiation.
the food that the kids have been eating has been poisoned. He says that, like, oh, we tested the food, that it was safe to eat, but we did not test the pit of the food. And as soon as you pick the plant, the pit is radioactive and it starts decaying into the rest of the plant, poisoning it.
Yes.
Showing Mother that, like, no, you're not the reason the other kids died. They were just dying to the radiation poisoning. You're a good mother. That's what he says.
In this scene, you kind of see Mother tear up, like her realizing, like, yes, it's not like it's not me. Like
Reassurance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reassurance.
Yeah, that's like reassurance for her that she's not killing the kid. She's kind of crying up
She
happiness.
smiles.
Yeah.
And that's that point where she gives Father the medicine. It's like, here you go. These are the vials. And they
It should counteract the radiation.
Exactly. So at that point, obviously, they go and split and they look for the kids. Now, it shows the children again. Obviously, the show keeps going, and then it actually shows the children in the forest.
At this point, the energy supplement that they've taken is worn off.
Serpent's heart.
And he's saying, Hunter is actually asking for more. He's like, oh, do you have any more of that stuff? Scratching his neck. I'm joking. And from there,
actually, Tempest says that she's in pain, that her stomach hurts. And it's like, well, no, it's been hurting ever since. I just didn't want anyone to worry. And they actually started hear screams, and they basically growling like there's another creature out there. One of those
some sort of screeching, something that they haven't heard before.
Yeah, not really a scream, but like a howl. Yeah, like we talked about earlier. And all the kids get together and they start praying. They start praying like to Soul, to their
Like,
god.
oh, the armor of Mithras.
And you see Campion praying with them, which I thought it was. Like,
oh, one thing actually. What's the girl's name? Vanita or whatever.
Vita?
Yeah,
Vita. She's actually not praying with them. She's keeping her eyes out, looking for what's making that sound. And she sees a figure, and very brave of this little girl, she picks up a rock off the ground and she chucks it at whatever she sees to try to protect them. And that's when it's revealed that the thing is actually Father, and he catches the rock midair, and he's pissed. He's very mad. And Campion, have you found that mouse yet? I want to pause the recap right here and actually point out this scene specifically, because I think there's another continuity error. Because at this moment, it shows with the arm that Father catches that rock with, it's actually bloodied. It looks like he's
Well, I feel like that's what, because they show the beast and they show Father actually going down, and you hear him like some kind of weird trick, like
we don't actually get a good look at that is the problem. So it was hard for me to even say that, like, oh, did Father kill this beast? He doesn't make point to point it out.
He doesn't.
And the other children do not see the beast.
I think he didn't point it out because he sees that they're obviously scared since they're praying.
I'm gonna argue that that's still bad continuity because because of the bloodied arm.
Yeah.
At the very next scene, he's taking Campion back to the camp, and he's like, okay, well, this is what's going on with the carbos. He's explaining it to him.
Yeah, he's like, why don't you look it up for yourself?
He says you gotta look it up for yourself. But in this whole scene, Father's hand is clean. There's no blood on his arm anymore.
Right.
So I think that's definitely a continuity error. But also because I'll just take the recap. I'm sorry to take this from you, Albert.
Go ahead.
But it's Campion. He's picking up the carbo. I also really don't like the scene that they have to show us that Campion. I would believe that Campion is gonna pick a carbo and scan it himself, right?
Especially since
But
he hasn't been trusting his parents in a while.
Yeah, it's kind of a little dragged out scene where he picks a carbo, he takes it back to the ship, he stuffs carbos into the ship, and it starts scanning it or whatever.
I think this scene is kind of dumb because how does he know how to use that
Yeah.
machine? How does he know where to put the
Besides
carbos?
that,
How does he
even,
know?
I say it's stupid just because it's like, oh well, yeah, I believe that Campion's going to do that. Why do we have to see it for ourselves?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how does he know how to use the ship?
Yeah.
It's not like it was taught. So he's loading the carbos. The ship scans it, and somehow he can actually read what kind of thing that the thing's telling him. It's showing him exactly what it showed mother and father earlier in the episode. And he's like, oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
He has some sort of realization, right? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, father, or whatever. And so he's walking out the ship, and that's when we see another one of these creatures actually coming up from on top of the ship, and it jumps to Campion and tries to attack him. Father tackles this creature.
Easily
Easily tackles it and
carries it away.
carries it away. Actually, really, it's a funny scene. So he's carrying away this thing, right? And he shoves it into the carbo shed, and he says, in 2 seconds, he's like, "Oh yeah, I changed it up.
I tied it up and
I
it's not
tied
gonna be
it
able to
up.
move."
It won't get away from us." I'm saying if he did kill that creature that was screeching in that fucking where they found the children, why wouldn't he kill this one?
Well, okay. Now we go back to the episode before. I believe he does talk about how he wanted to examine the creatures if you would have left anything. If you would have left.
But that's
anything
why
money.
there would be remains of him punching a creature to death, right? So why not punch this creature to death?
Because now he could study a live one.
I guess. I'm not happy with the way it's presented. I think the whole thing of the bloodied arm could I guess we could assume that he would have punched the creature, right?
Right.
We didn't have to see the bloody arm.
Okay.
The arm didn't have to be bloodied, just for it to not be bloodied in the very next scene.
Okay.
Makes sense. I'm pretty sure that was just an error for the person that was like taking care of all their.
The costume design or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And but that's the thing. Like, it's not the kind of thing that you pay a lot of money for. I don't know how much
People make mistakes. Dude, look at Trump.
We're not getting political in this podcast. But I will say, I mean, love HBO Max.
Definitely.
Not sponsored, but would like to be.
That's right.
It just seems like there's a couple of things in this show that it feels rushed out to me. I feel like it may have been something that they had on the cutting room floor, and they rushed it out to make sure it got out during the pandemic. Not trying to be political.
At this point, I do want to point out that they did switch directors. They switched directors.
Yeah,
Nice.
the first two episodes
Those
were
were
directed by Ridley
Ridley
Scott.
Scott.
This one does have a different director.
Yeah, I mean
So,
Ridley Scott's experience is intense compared to
Well, I also thought there were some continuity problems in the first two episodes.
not as bad as this one. I didn't hear you complain about it this much.
I did complain about it.
Not as much as this one.
Okay, maybe I feel more about this one because I was arguing about it when I watched it at that very moment, and I still feel very heated about this.
Jesus.
But
I'd
Let
just
me-
like to point out that this episode was directed by Luke Scott, Ridley Scott's son.
No nepotism, of course.
a little bit of nepotism. Some light nepotism. That's America, right?
All right. Well, at this point, let's get back to it.
Yeah, is there any more recap?
Actually, there's this is basically the end, the final scenes. Mother is actually shown looking for Paul. She's out there. If you could hear.
Oh,
me,
yeah, because we don't see Paul yet.
Yeah, we don't see Paul at all until now. So now at this point, we see Paul and Mother. Mother's actually yelling out there. It's like, if you could hear my voice scream, and I will find you. I will come find you.
No need to be afraid.
No need to be afraid. You know, it's me. But
Paul
we
can't
see
hear.
Paul can't hear anything. We hear Paul, and he is screaming, but for the other kids, right? Campion, Hunter, blah blah blah.
Oh, yeah, this
And-
is where the ghost child comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, at this point, we see Paul sees a person or a ghost child that was introduced in the credits.
I call it a ghost child because that's what it's called in the credits.
Yeah, in the credits, is introduced as a ghost child laughing. She's starting to singing like a little humming or a little, what would you call it?
It's a little like nursery
A little
rhyme
lullaby.
kind of.
A
She's singing
lullaby,
like a
maybe?
little lullaby and kind of
Well,
runs.
it's
through.
just playful fucking song.
Yeah, it doesn't
'cause
have like lyrics. It's
Yeah.
just
It sounds a
a
little.
melody.
It sounds a little spooky because of there's an audio effect added to the sound to make it sound a little spooky, like
Yeah.
a little, like I
You
don't know how
also
to describe
have
it.
to-
It sounds like echoey.
You also have to keep in mind that at this point it's dark.
Dark.
Paul
There's
can't see anything.
mist.
There's mist everywhere, and he's following. All we see is a dark cloak
Yeah, and he's
thing,
following the humming.
and he does see that stick figure again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now he's walking towards it. He's right behind it. He's trying to see who it is. Boom! He falls into a giant hole, one of those pits that was covered just by a couple leaves. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it
because-
was. It seems like it may have been a trap.
Yeah. See, that's what I was thinking. Now he does fall. He hits a giant piece of, I guess, a giant root that was there.
Well,
in the ground.
it looked more like a trunk to like a fallen tree or something. But yeah,
Could
it
be.
may have been a root.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it may
some
have
sort of
Wood.
structure,
Branch.
some sort of wood. That's he definitely gets some wood.
He definitely hit some wood on his way down, and he was there gripping onto the wood. Now the camera does point out, and it does make it very clear. This is a giant hole that this guy's holding onto, and there's nothing but branches around it, kind of falling into the hole. And that's kind of where the episode ends.
That
Boom,
is where the
cuts
episode ends.
off.
Yeah, it cuts off with this cliffhanger where Paul is hanging on for dear life, and Mother does not know where he is.
Yet.
I want to go back a little bit to the ghost child and her humming. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the humming of that child, it's literally the same sound that Tally was singing in the first episode. It's the same la di da di da di all the strong.
That's true.
It's
And you know
literally the
what?
same sound with
He
just a
falls
ghostly.
into a hole just like Tally
That's
did.
true. I didn't even think about that. He falls into a hole just like Tally.
If Campion was there, just in case it is Tally, to recognize her.
Right?
If he even remembers, because in the first episode he mentions that he's forgetting.
Yeah, he doesn't even remember what they look like anymore.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
Also, I do want to point out in that scene where Tempest starts calling out Soul. He's like, "Why don't you come strike me down?" She starts arguing with Hunter, and sure enough, this is what happens when you challenge Soul. You start coughing up blood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She did cough.
there-
blood.
I will push back and say correlation does not equal causation, but you may be right.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see,
We'll
of
We'll
course.
see. I'm not gonna. I'm soul agnostic.
We still have 7 episodes to go.
Yeah.
We do have 7 episodes to go. Again, we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, that is all we have time for today. I want to thank you for listening, and once again, we are here on the far side of the moon.